Well, viewers, the School of Extension and Development Studies at Indira Gandhi National Open University has started a MA in Extension and Development Studies. Now, to address the issues of extension education, teaching and learning process, we have two eminent scholars for the panel discussion today. First, I would like to introduce you to Professor S.K. Bhati. Professor S.K. Bhati is head of the Department of Adult and Continuing Education and Extension at Jamia Millia Islamia University, New Delhi. Professor S.K. Bhati has more than 24 years of experience in teaching and research. His area of specialization is extension education. He has several research papers to his credit. He is also member of a number of Indian societies relating to adult education. He is the first and pioneers who started the master's degree in extension and education at Jamia Millia Islamia University at New Delhi. The another panelist we have is Dr. P.V.K. Sashidhar. He is associate professor at the School of Extension and Development Studies, Indira Gandhi National Open University at New Delhi. Dr. Sashidhar is a veterinarian with extension education specialization in masters and PhD, and he has more than 10 years of research and teaching and extension experience in national agricultural research systems in India. He was a postdoctoral research fellow at Tuskegee University, Alabama, USA in 2008. Dr. P.V.K. Sashidhar won 4 Young Scientist Awards for his contributions to the discipline of extension education, and he was Norman Borlaug International Agriculture Science and Technology Fellow at USDA in 2008. Now, we will start with Dr. Sashidhar. Well, Dr. Sashidhar, you know that teaching learning process is crucial in any extension education program. Please explain how the teaching learning process is important in extension and development work.
Well, Dr. Farooqi, extension education in the context of development and in the context of teaching learning process is aimed at development of individual in terms of economy, in terms of cultural development, in terms of social development, human development, and as well overall development of an individual. Coming to the teaching learning process, it has two important subcomponents like teaching and then learning. If you see the teaching, the meaning of the teaching in the formal way, teaching is a intimate contact between a well informed like a teacher and a less informed like a student. That means an intimate contact between a teacher and the student so that knowledge, skills and attitudes are transferred from well informed to less informed. But in the context of extension and development, teaching is not merely just the transfer of either skill, knowledge or attitudes. Thus, in the context of extension development, teaching is trying to bring about relatively permanent change in the behavior of individual by exposing him to different learning experiences. And so also, if you see the learning in the context of extension and development, it is aimed at bringing about behavioral change by exposing him to learning experiences. But this change in behavior can be brought in by two ways. If you see, one is through maturation, that is the biological change in the process once individual grows, and second thing is bringing the change through exposing him to the learning experiences. So, as an extension and development workers, we want to expose the learners or the people to the developmental experiences. In that process, we do not have any control on the maturation part, that means on biological part of the change in behavior. So, the alternative available to extension development workers is change in the behavior of the individuals by exposing them to different learning experiences. So, the results of this teaching and learning process, if it is formal, there are two ways, formal ways and then informal ways. If the results are formal, then we call it as education for development, and if the results of teaching learning are informal through extension, then we call it as extension education for development.
Well, Dr. Shashi, you mentioned that individuals are to be engaged in good learning experience that will lead to relatively permanent change. Please elaborate the concept of learning experience in extension education in India.
Well, learning experience is a crucial and has to play a central role in the process of teaching learning overall. Irrespective of the contents, irrespective of the methods we use for the transfer of information, the focus should be on the suitable learning experiences in order to bring about permanent change. We aimed at bringing about permanent change, so that learning experiences are the suitable way for that. If you see the meaning of the learning experiences is nothing but the mental or the physical reaction of the people who are exposed to that learning experiences. So, what he will do after exposing the people to particular learning experience, what mental and physical action the learner do, and then consequently he will follow that in overall development of either his own or the society as a whole. But if you see, the prominent Chinese proverb also says that if you tell me something, I will forget after some time, but if you show me that anything that learning experience or the individual, then there is a chance of remembering for some more time. But if you make me to involve in that process, that is learning by doing, if you make me to involve in that process, then the learning will be permanent and there is a chance of more permanent change in the behavior. So, what I mean to say by quoting this Chinese proverb or by giving the definition of this learning experience is that the individuals have to be exposed to an objective learning experience, then the change we aimed in the process of extension development will be permanent. For example, if you take one or two experiences in the class of for example, any extension officer who is taking a class and trying to bring about a permanent change among the village level extension workers. If you say extension worker A and extension worker B, for extension worker A tries to listen to what extension scientist or extension worker is saying, and then he will try to interpret it with his own situation in his back village where he want to bring about the relatively permanent change, and he will try to ask some questions, the extension worker, and then he will try to get some answers for that. So, that in this process he is not only physically he is present there, but also mentally also he is present there. He is intervening and he is interrupting, and then he is trying to get maximum information by exposing them. Alternatively, the extension worker B, physically he sits there, but his mental process are somewhere. So, neither he gets any benefit nor his people back at home will be beneficial because of his exposure to the extension scientist. Another example, if you take for example, in the transport extension, if you see in the urban developmental process, we talk about what you call mass transport system, development of mass transport system, so that people use the mass transport vehicles, so that the pressure on the roads and then this one will be coming down. But the thing is that there are definitely advantages. By using mass transport system, you can save the fuel, you can save the time, and you can save the pressure on the roads. But at the same time, the learning experience, you are leaving your car and going by mass transport system, that should give a better learning experience to you. If you feel comfortable by using mass transport system than your own car, then that experience will be permanent, and if you are comfortable with that, you will tend to utilize that. After that, if it is not permanent or if it is not convenient to him, there is a tendency that he will discard. That means the change is not permanent, only a temporary change because of extension efforts is coming from the individual motor vehicle to the mass transport system. But if the experience is what you call favorable, he will try to continue it, otherwise he will go by that. What I mean to say is that the extension workers focus should be bringing about a relatively permanent change by exposing them to suitable learning experiences, so that both mental and the physical processes will be involved here.
Well, after learning about the learning process and learning experiences, we shift our focus towards the origin and growth of extension education. And to address this, we have Professor S.K. Bhati. I would request you, sir, to elaborate on this.
Extension education is considered to be one of the new and paradoxically also the oldest discipline, particularly in India, which is famous for its ancient cultural heritage, studied with saints and sages. The message of Lord Krishna given to Arjuna in a battlefield is an example of extension education. However, the history of present form of extension education has been evolved during the past 2 centuries. With the development of science and technology, new agricultural technology was developed, and certain farmers associations during 17th and 18th century started disseminating that agricultural technology to their members. However, the first government effort, or say the first agricultural extension service of modern kind, was established in Ireland during 1947 and 51, when there has been a serious potato crop failure and famine. The government appointed certain instructors who went to the villages and taught the farmers how to protect their crop. In the university system, the concept of extension first originated in Cambridge University. In universities, usually the students come from the society, they come to the college or the university and study there. In the society and community, there has been many persons who could not afford to come to the university and get the benefit of the knowledge available at the university level. So, some professors from Cambridge University started going out to the community and villages to teach people, and this James Stott was the first such professor, who is often also called as the father of university extension. He started giving extension lectures in women organizations. Then this concept became popular in other universities also, and they also started giving extension lectures, and it took several forms, campaigns and camps for teaching people, a distance education program also, and several other countries. In USA, the concept of community library was evolved, and in USA it became more popular, particularly in the agricultural field. And in 1914, a Smith-Lever Cooperative Extension Act was passed, due to which the land grant colleges were given the function of extension, and they disseminated agricultural knowledge and agricultural technology for the whole, in the whole state and in the whole county. Several other governments also started such kinds of extension services. And during, when these extension activities have been taking place, the extension workers found that they need specialized knowledge to disseminate this agriculture knowledge and technology. So, they need to have some training, and when training was given, soon the discipline of extension education also start evolving. Master's degree in extension education was started. The persons who were doing extension in non-agricultural fields, after passing of the Smith-Lever Act in 1914, they formed a National University Extension Association in USA, and they concentrated on correspondence education and adult education, and likewise the discipline as a teaching discipline and also as a extension service, the concept of extension started developing. In Indian situation, there has been some sporadic efforts by several individuals prior to independence. However, a nationwide organized extension work through national government was started only after independence with the launching of Community Development Program in 1952, and then National Extension Service in 1953. Social education program to deal with the literary and social social problems was also the part of the community development. In 1950s, correspondence education was also started. In the university system, the government started agricultural universities towards the end of the decade 1950, and they were established on the pattern of the land grant colleges of the USA. There, these universities also had extension as their third function besides the teaching and research. Teaching of extension education in agricultural universities also started during 50s. With the encouraged with the outcomes of the Green Revolution and the extension role that agricultural universities played, the government UGC in 1977 also accepted extension as the third function in general universities and established centers of adult and continuing education and extension in several general universities. They were performing extension function also, as well as some universities started offering master's degree in extension education and adult education. So, this is how the concept of extension developed as a function, university function also, as a function of the government also, and also as a subject of teaching.
In our literature, we find that there are many definitions of extension education. They emphasize upon different views. Why is it so, sir?
There are several reasons. One is the concept of extension education, as I just explained, evolved around 2 centuries ago, and it has been evolving over the time. With the growth in theory and practice, by over a century, 2 centuries experience, new meanings and concepts have been continuously added. As a result, large number of activities are covered under extension, and there has been different meanings and different definitions. The use of the terminology has also been one of the reason. When the word extension, English word, is translated in other languages, there are slight changes in the meaning of the word. For example, in the Dutch, they use the word verlichting, meaning lightening the pathway. Germans use the word enlightenment. French speaks of the vulgarization, which stresses the need of simplification. So, there are different concepts which are being added due to the change in the use of the terminology. Moreover, depending upon the political and socio-economic and cultural situations in different countries or areas of extension education, has been used to achieve different purposes and objectives. In conservative traditions, they use informative extension, that is, they inform, give advice, and then leave on the people either to accept it or not to accept it. In socialist tradition, there is emancipatory extension, where it is being seen as an instrument for achieving societal objectives for correcting structural problems. Then, in both the traditions, there is also emphasis on human resource development, that is formative extension, that is enhancing the capacities of the people to make them better decision makers, to make them learn, to make them manage, to make them communicate better and analyze the situations and take the actions accordingly. Also, extension is being practiced by many different kind of organizations, and since the organizations are different, their some functions are also different, and people consider that whatever they are doing is the only extension, and accordingly define the extension as per the work of their organizations. So, many different kinds of definitions have come up, but there are also many common elements in all these definitions.
People say that effective learning experience can only be gained in a well structured and skillfully executed learning situation. What is the learning situation in extension education? Dr. Shashi, please elaborate on this.
Well, Dr. Farooqi, after discussing about the teaching learning process and the learning experiences, it is appropriate to discuss about learning situation. As you said, appropriate learning will take place in well informed and well formed learning situation. The meaning of learning situation is that in an effective learning situation, all elements of learning should be properly taken place. There are 5 elements of learning. Number 1, learner, then the instructor, the teaching material, then the physical facilities, and as well as the teaching material. In these 5 elements, the learner is the central part, and around which all the 4 other elements are diagonally taken place. For example, if you want to see the role of this learning situation with the elements in the context of health and family welfare extension, as an instructor, the health and family welfare extension worker tries to show some educational film to a rural audience about family planning. Here the instructor is the learner is the rural audience who are the stakeholders of this family planning processes. The instructor here is the health and family welfare extension worker, and then the subject matter is what is family planning, where it has to be done, what are the implications of family planning, what are the uses, what are the government schemes available for conducting family planning, etc. could be the subject matter, and appropriate teaching material with teaching methods and as well as audiovisual aids can be used by the extension worker here. And then physical facilities is location of a good place in a rural setting with appropriate light setting, and then facility for display of a short film on family planning and health education. Here the learner is the rural audience, so you should take care of the appropriateness of the rural audience. For example, this film is for the adult only. So, if children are there, the very purpose of the film will be defeated. So, the learning situation here is the extension worker's role is to provide appropriate learning situation for the learner. So, he should take care of his audience also. So, he should take care of the audience and their age, etc. while giving the presentation about this particular program. Second thing, instructor himself should see the film first, and then he should note down some possible questions or possible important aspects to be observed by the rural audience while screening the film, and he should be ready with the answers for that particular questions also at the end of the program. If you see the subject matter, it should properly cover what is the family planning, what are the benefits, what are the advantages, and then what are the different government schemes available. Then the teaching methods, for example, the individual charts and the audiovisual aids should be appropriately designed, so that at the end of the show the audience can see that. And then physical facilities, as I said, there should be appropriate place without any disturbance, and then there should be appropriate light, and then some darkness should be there to show the film, and after that the light arrangement should be there for follow up the discussion, etc. So, what I mean to say is that by creating all these 4 elements, the instructor himself is creating a suitable conducive environment that we call as a learning situation for the benefit of the learner here in order to carry out the extension education program.
Often it is said that teaching, learning in organized forms are most educative. Can you please explain more for the benefit of the students?
Yes, Dr. Farooqi. Professor Bhati also, he was talking about that there are many informal extension education programs since 3-4 centuries. And even India also, before independence, we have organized several extension activities, but they are very informally organized without following a formal process and formal methods of extension process. Why we are talking about organized ways of doing things is that in democratic societies, if you see particularly in 19th and 20th centuries, they got benefited, several subsectors of development got benefited by organized way of extension activities. Even in India, you say Green Revolution. Green Revolution is the best example for organized way of organizing extension activities in the field of agriculture extension. So, what extension workers in agriculture they did was in 1960s they formed, they distributed the improved and high yielding varieties of seeds with inputs and the related material and methodology, so that it was an organized form of extension, so that self sufficiency and then food security occurred. So, also if you take the White Revolution, that is Operation Flood, it is also a very good example of an organized effort of animal husbandry extension work in India. Here what the cooperative societies under Operation Flood did was, they procured the milk and then they gave one what you called assured marketing system for the producers, and at the same time at different levels they were organized at village level and at the block level and the district level through cooperative setup. So, in this process they got learning experiences, the good learning situations as well as good extension education efforts, so that they could achieve better results. Ultimately it translated into Operation Flood. If you see outside examples for organized extension efforts, the best one is our nearby the Bangladesh movement. The Bangladesh movement of Muhammad Yunus, who got the Nobel Prize, he has also conducted one organized extension activity in the form of microcredit. He has the bank established by him, the Grameen Bank. Grameen Bank gave the microcredit, the loans to the poorest of the poor in an organized form, and then it was branched and then it was networked into an organized activity, so that a microcredit movement came up and people were benefited for securing their livelihood through small activities, income generating activities. So, what I mean to say is that there are extension education efforts informally being organized even in different subsectors of development even now also. But the lessons from agriculture and allied fields have to be drawn, how they are benefited from by organizing these extension activities in an organized form. The same thing if we could able to organize in other subsectors also, then there is a chance of what you call lot of success for the extension efforts. Recently, if you see the health and family welfare extension, Pulse Polio program. Pulse Polio program is a very good example for a recent organized extension effort in health and family welfare. So, every month or in fixed duration on fixed Sundays, they are conducting polio vaccination throughout the country on a mission mode, on a campaign mode, methodologically following the extension principles in order to eradicate the polio disease. After starting this Pulse Polio program, the report says that a lot of improvement is there and lot of what you called decrease is there in the polio cases registered in various parts. So, what I mean to say here is that people or any subsectors of development will definitely be benefited if extension efforts are organized in a methodological way.
Now, we will shift our focus and discussion to common elements of extension education, and I will request Professor Bhati to elaborate upon this.
There are several common elements in the definitions of extension education. One is that extension education is an intervention. We go to the people, we intervene in the life of the people and try to do them, persuade them to take certain actions. Of course, intervention is not poking one's nose in affairs of others. It is for their benefit that we plan the extension programs. In extension education programs, situation is analyzed, problems and needs are identified. Solutions are proposed, selected, objectives are formulated, strategies and activities are designed, a plan of work is prepared, resources are deployed, activities are implemented and then evaluated. This call for a detailed knowledge of interventionology or courses like extension program planning and dynamics of plant change, etc. Second common element found in the definitions is that communication is an educational process. In extension education, we try to bring about desirable changes in the behavior of the people, in their knowledge, in their attitudes, in their skills, and this is an educational process, maybe in the non-formal kind of form. Thirdly, extension is a communication intervention. Having said extension is an educational process, the communication remains the only instrument to induce the changes in the behavior of the people. So, we interact with them, we motivate them, we persuade them, we advise them and thus communicate with them to bring about changes in their behavior. Another common element is that extension education intends to induce changes in the voluntary behavior of the people. Non-voluntary changes like those brought about through compliance, surveillance and incentives and social control are not attempted through extension education, as they are against the logic of communication intervention. At times, an extension mix is used where some incentives are being given and educational process is also attempted. Then another common element has been that extension education has an altruistic orientation. There is a regard for unprivileged or underprivileged people. This point may not have been explicitly stated in many of the definitions, but the use of the words like helping, assist, teaching, education or development, etc. indicates altruistic orientation of the extension education.
What are the extension teaching methods used in extension programs, Dr. Shashidhar?
Well, Dr. Farooqi, teaching methods, if you see the meaning, they are the tools or techniques used for transferring of information from extension to learners or the people who are the stakeholders of the extension education process. But how this information is transferred? Basically, information is transferred in three ways. One is people coming to the extension worker for information. Second thing is extension workers going to the people for giving the information, or extension workers sending information to the people through some media. So, in all these three ways we use extension teaching methods. Basically, these extension teaching methods are of three ways. One is individual contact, that means we contact people individually. Group contacts, people are contacted, groups usually of 20 to 25 nature, and mass contact methods in which we contact group of community, maybe hundreds or thousands of people. In the first sense, individual, for example, a person is having an individual problem, if there is some problem with his crop, he come to the extension worker, the extension worker will give solution to that. It is individual contact, we call it as office visit by a farmer to the extension worker. Contrary to that, if communicated the problem, then extension worker visit the field of the farmer and then he will give the solution. This is an individual contact method. Contrary to that, a group of farmers, say around 30-40 farmers in a village, they have the similar problem. Then all the people, they come to the extension worker for the solution, then extension worker visit the field and he address all the group members the problem as a whole. Probably he will demonstrate a method demonstration or a result demonstration how to solve the problem, or he will organize a small group meeting and then he will discuss the origin of the problem and how to prevent it. This is a group contact method. Contrary to this, in group mass contact method, For example, there is an outbreak of disease. So, the time availability is very short. In very short period, we need to communicate information to a large number of audience. Then we communicate the information through radio or TV. These are the mass contact methods, or a campaign like pulse polio program is a mass contact method. So, these are basically three methods: individual, group methods and mass contact methods. These are the extension teaching methods usually we use in different extension teaching programs.
There are many teaching methods for different extension education programs. What are the factors to be considered in the selection of these teaching methods?
Well, under individual contact method, there are different methods like farm and home visit, then office contact, then writing a personal letter to the farmer or to the individual. And under group method, we have group discussion, group meeting, or result demonstration, or a method demonstration. And under mass contact method, we have a campaign mode of meeting, then the mass meeting, and etc. Different methods are there. But a good extension worker has to select among them one or two or a combination of methods based on some factors. For example, education level of the audience. The stakeholders that you are going to address, if their education level, if they are well educated, probably you can use some written methods. You can write a personal letter to them, or you can use some charts or some material during the extension teaching method. But if they are illiterates, then you have to approach a different method. So, also the size of the audience. If person is single or few, then we can use individual contact methods. If there are 20 to 25 people, we can go for group contact method like a demonstration or a small meeting or a group discussion. And then the credibility of the extension organization. If extension organization is a new one, since it has to establish its credibility, probably it has to conduct some demonstrations at village level, then people see the demonstration and they see the merit of the organization, and then they will go for that. But if organization is already well established and already having worthiness among the stakeholders, probably sending a newsletter or sending a personal letter will be sufficient to meet that one. So, also the quantity of the extension workers, the size of the extension workers. For example, if you have large number of extension people, then they go for individual contact methods and the group contact methods, so that they can communicate. But if extension worker size is very less, then probably you have to opt for either group method or a mass method, so that you can contact a large number of people in very small time. And so, also media availability, if radio is available for large number of people, and if television is available, you can show some skill demonstration also. So, these are all are the different methods. For example, subject matter is there. If subject matter to be communicated is skill oriented, then obviously you have to go for a method demonstration at the field level. But if you simply bringing about awareness about existence of the practice, then simply mass media issuing the mass communication will be sufficient. So, these are some of the extension factors to be considered while selecting extension teaching methods.
Could you also elaborate the different audio visual aids that is used in extension programs?
Yeah. Like teaching methods, audio visual aids also can be classified as audio aid, visual aids, and then audio visual aids. Here the basis for classification is the sense involved. In the audio aid, it is only hearing. Through ear only we can use that method, so it is called audio aids. And in visual aids, here the sense eye is involved, and in audio visual aids both the senses are involved. The Chinese proverb here also says that if exposure to the person through hearing, the impact will tend to be very small, and if it is through visual, probably will have some more impact, but if it is an audio visual aid, the impact could be much more better and then longer duration. Like audio aids, we have number of audio aids. For example, radio is a very good audio aid, and then visual aid, if you see the television, both of them are the teaching methods, no doubt about that, but in the situation warrants, then we can use them as a audio visual aids also. If you see the audio visual aids in the modern context, then there is now the video test, then we are using interactive video programs. So, the number of audio visual aids are available. The thing is that different based on the factors, some of the factors we discussed for the teaching methods, for the dissemination of and using of the audio visual aids also, extension workers carefully select them depending on the need.
Thank you, Dr. Shashi. Thank you very much, Professor S.K. Bhati and Dr. Shashidhar, for presenting very good extension education and teaching learning processes in India. Thank you very much.